Okay. Hello, everyone. Thanks for coming this morning to go through this quick session on Microsoft Azure. Do you want to do what can I call it? Introduction quickly, Ben, before we get going? Just maybe a few minutes, maybe for Sai, perhaps.
Yeah. So welcome everyone. So this group is pretty much a group where we come together to discuss technology and also learn from each other. So usually Aziz and I are the ones making the presentations, but anyone interested is very welcome to also prepare something and share. So the ultimate goal of the group is to form a community, around technology, and then we all make progress together. So, and also make it available, make it accessible to the maximum amount of people. Meaning that if the currently in the audience we have like French speakers, they can say so, and then we can accommodate them by also sharing the information in French and other languages down the line. And that's it.
Yeah. So my name is Aziz. Quick background: I currently I would say I'm a cloud engineer. I started out as a software engineer, then got into data engineering, and then did some big data work, and then more recently I've been doing more cloud engineering. And the cloud engineering I've done Azure, no, sorry, not Azure, GCP, Google Cloud, and that's where most of my experience comes from, and also a little bit of AWS. And then more recently, I started learning Azure, and what a better way to sort of teach what you learned, right? So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to learn about the cloud in general, but more specifically Azure. Without any, before we get to any questions, before we get started, anything in the chat before I get started here? No? All right. So basically, I know in the group here, a couple of you I'd say most of us have heard of what the cloud is, right? Sai, you say you've done some, you've got a certification in Azure, and the rest of us, I think we've all, Samda, I believe you also have worked with the cloud before?
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit? Okay, got it. Which platform do you?
AWS.
AWS, okay, cool. All right, so basically, we're going to define what cloud actually is, and then get into some like concept about cloud, and finally we'll do a quick demo with Azure. So what is the cloud, right? When you think about cloud, when you hear about cloud, if you've never touched it, you've never done anything with it, you wonder like, okay, what are these people talking about when they talk about cloud, right? So basically, quick definition. So the cloud is a technology that allows individual or organizations to access resources via the internet, and they basically pay as they use those resources, right? So if you think about in the past, let's say you are a big company. Let's say you are a Best Buy, you are let me not use Amazon. Let's say you are a Target or any of these big companies, right? You have your IT infrastructure is basically you basically manage your IT infrastructure. What I mean by that is that you actually have a physical infrastructure that is sitting either in the same area as where your workers are, or it's in a different area. So actually, you have physical servers sitting and running that you manage the electricity for, you manage the networking for, you manage the everything that has to do with the computers, the servers, you manage that. So if for example, you need to do patches or upgrades, you manage all that stuff, right? you also you have to kind of think about, okay, as my company is growing, as the traffic to my company is growing, I need to either buy bigger servers or faster servers, or I need to plan for increasing capacity for spike in traffic, for example, in the coming year. Right? So you have to think about all that, and if you think about it, all those considerations basically cost money, right? So the other thing too, let's say you buy expensive servers, and then traffic comes in, your servers are able to handle that, perfect, you're good. But then traffic basically goes down for, let's say your business is seasonal, then traffic goes down. Then you have those expensive servers just running there, still costing you money, but you have to take care of them because you own those servers. However, what the cloud is basically proposing is a way to rent those infrastructure and pay only when you use them, right? So that's kind of like the value add that the cloud is offering, is providing you with computing services, computing infrastructure that you can pay, that you can rent and use only when you need it, right? So in terms of the service model that they offer, and by service model, we're thinking about the different approaches that you can basically face, I guess I would use the word, with cloud provider, or there are three models basically. So one is infrastructure as service, then the second is platform as a service, and then software as a service. Okay. So for infrastructure as service, this is where you basically deploy or request all the services possible from the cloud provider, right? So anything that has to do with storage, networking, compute, that's the model, like infrastructure as service. So you basically rent an infrastructure. So an example here is Azure. An example here is AWS or Google Cloud, right? Then that is at the top, right? Then you go to the next level, a platform as a service. So here, you basically can deploy, run, and manage applications from a provider without necessarily having to maintain the servers behind it, right? So I know this is because this is kind of the middle point. It could be a little tricky, right? So think of it this way: a platform as a service is one layer up than infrastructure as a service. So as a platform, you are basically outsourcing some of the management and of the servers to the cloud provider. So an example of a platform is Heroku, or Azure CDN, which is the content delivery network, or app services. So Azure, for example, app services, right? Azure would provide you with a framework or a platform that you can deploy your application to some servers, but they take care of a lot of the complexity for you. You just have to know how to use the platform and do some configuration and basically deploy your applications. Yeah. And then one level up is you get into what you call like software as a service. So this is where you basically use a software via the internet. So an example is Google Workspace, Microsoft 365, those kind of things, right? Those are what you call software as a service. There, if you think about it, when you use a software, there's a lot of things that you don't really care for, right? You basically can download the software and start using it. You don't necessarily care about, how to maintain the software, or you just basically use it. So the maintenance of it is done by the provider of that software. So to recap again, right, you go from the bottom, which is the infrastructure as service, where you basically control a lot of the infrastructure. The provider basically puts those services at your in your hands, and you manage a lot of it. Then you go up where you get to the platform. Then you relinquish a little bit of the maintenance to the provider, and then as you get to the software as a service, this is where a lot of the maintenance is given to the cloud provider. Any questions on this one? Any clarifications on this one? This makes sense. Okay. So the shared responsibility model, you can think of this as like, what is you, the user or the company, what is your responsibility compared to what the responsibility of the cloud provider is, right? And depending on which level of service you have with the cloud provider, your responsibility may shift. Okay. So as I discussed before, right? So when you are in the infrastructure as service, basically these are the responsibilities that your cloud provider provides, and then these are the responsibilities that you have, right? So as a cloud provider, they'll provide the security of the infrastructure. So by infrastructure, we're talking about the actual physical data centers, the networking, making sure that the cables are in good shape, making sure that the all the virtual machines, the VMs, the storage, all of that is maintained. So hardware maintenance, all the things that the provider, the cloud provider provides, they take care of that. Then for you just have to make sure that your data is that you bring into the cloud are secured, and a few other things that you may need to maintain. So for example, security within the cloud provider, your environment, so firewalls, IP addresses, and things like that. So an example that I want to illustrate this, you can think about like when you're renting a place, you're renting an apartment in a building, right? So the building owner ensures that the plumbing works, ensures that the electricity works, ensures that the building itself is in good shape, and also ensures that, sometimes depending on the building that you are, you may have security guards at the door to make sure that the building is secure. Now, you that is renting an apartment in the building, you have to make sure that every time you go to sleep, you lock your doors. Within your apartment, you have to make sure that it is clean. You have to make sure that you may have to get insurance for your equipment, not equipment, what do you call it? Your furniture inside the building. Sorry, inside of your apartment. So you can see how the shared responsibility between you, the renter, and then the apartment owner, right? The building owner. And as you go up to like the platform as a service, you can see your responsibility kind of shifts a little bit, right? So the cloud provider, for example, here needs to make sure that, for example, runtime environment for the some of the operating system for the platform, security of the platform itself, right? They need to handle that. Whereas you, again, it's the security of your data. The application that you're building on that platform, you need to make sure that those are secure, right? So you see your responsibility kind of like goes up a little bit here on the stack. And for the software as a service, same thing. So now the provider takes, so let's say an example of Microsoft 365, right? Microsoft makes sure that 365 cannot be hacked easily. Make sure that all the code behind it is secure. If there is any sort of outage, they are responsible to fix and make sure that the software is always running. So, and again, you are just responsible for, okay, for my Microsoft 365 account, I need to make sure that nobody outside of my company can access it, right? So I need to ensure that I have good security policies around that. So all of this is to say that depending on the model that you have with the cloud provider, depending on how your interaction and depending on the type of service you request from the cloud provider, your responsibility kind of goes up and down in terms of like the maintenance, the security, governance, and all these things. So that's kind of like the gist of shared responsibility. So I have a picture to illustrate that here. So as you can see, when you're dealing with infrastructure as service, so as your responsibility basically goes all the way to to the operating system, and then the cloud provider is responsible for the network, the data center, and then the hosting, right? Then when you get to the platform, you can see that the responsibility of the customer kind of goes down, whereas the responsibility of the cloud provider goes up just a little bit, right? So here it depends on the software that you use, right? And then once you get to a software as a service, the responsibility of the cloud provider goes way up, whereas your responsibility is like pretty small in terms of like security and blah blah blah. So whereas on premise, which is the old model before cloud, you're responsible for everything. You can see Microsoft is not responsible because you're not getting anything from Microsoft really. You're responsible for everything. Yeah. So I'll pause here and hear if there are any sort of comments about this, questions. Anything you want to add, Ben, that I may have missed?
Yeah, so which one would you suggest, I don't know, for new cloud users? Like, which type of service they should use to start with?
So if you're new to cloud, right? It will depend on like what kind of services you're going to ask or you're going to request. Let's say you are a startup. You're starting out new. You want to build an application quickly. You would need, I would say, from a combination of SaaS and PaaS, because there are some services where you would need to need control over, depending on the stack that you're requesting or you want to use. So you will definitely be in between the SaaS and the PaaS. I would say the infrastructure is when you're very, very mature. So a big company that knows how to handle, that knows what they want and that knows what they're doing. They have a team that's a huge IT team that's basically know what they're doing. They will prefer to be on the infrastructure as service because then they have more control over, the the type of application they want to build, the type of operating system they want to have, version, and all these things. What they just need is the data, the cloud itself, and then the networking, right? And the newer you are, I would say you have to go closer to SaaS and PaaS.
Yeah, another question. Maybe can you make some comments about cost? In the variations between like SaaS, PaaS, infrastructure as a service, on-prem. Like how does cost vary?
Yeah. So in terms of cost, right? So the only comment that I can make is this, and this is more, it needs to be confirmed, right? I would say the more you are on this side of things, like software as a service, right? The I would say it would be slightly more expensive because the cloud provider is taking care of a lot of other things for you, right? And the closer you get into here, right? Here, if you are a big company, then you're only needing these services from the cloud provider, right? So to the cloud provider, they don't need to take care of all these things for you. So it would be slightly cheaper. Now, I had made already the comment about on-prem that this is all cost to you. So it doesn't matter really, this is all cost to you. So, but one thing to note is that even though this may be slightly more expensive on this side, the thing that you need to know is that, again, a lot of these resources you pay as you go, meaning if you're not using them, basically you're not paying for it. So there are a lot of ways to minimize your cloud spend. By one quick example is what, let's say you start a virtual machine that's running. Let's say, and we talked about this concept actually last year, like auto scaling, right? Let's say you say, okay, my company needs 3 virtual machines, a minimum of 3 virtual machines, right? But if traffic goes up, I want them to go to 5 virtual machines, right? So when traffic goes down, you go back to using 3 virtual machines. So here, you can control how much basically you're spending based on traffic, based on demand. You can even decide, okay, at 1 a.m. in the morning, I know I don't have a lot of traffic. I can go down to 1 virtual machine. Whereas if you are, let's say, on-prem, although you may be able to do the same thing, you still own these machines that are running. You still pay for the electricity of the machines that are running. You still pay for the maintenance and all that stuff. Right? So using the cloud, you will save some money, but you definitely have to make sure that you look at your usage pattern and have a plan on how to mitigate costs, because as much as cloud is cheaper, you can still spend a lot of money on cloud. So you have to know what you're doing, basically.
Okay. I have a quick question.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you want to go first?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. So I know before the AWS and Google Cloud and stuff, there were some web hosting services like Bluehost, InMotion, and stuff. Can they be called cloud providers? If not, what makes a provider becomes like a cloud provider?
Yeah. So to answer that, the difference is this, right? The hosting of a website was one service that they offered, right? It was just like, okay, we're gonna host your website. That's basically it, right? So companies like Netlify, for example, they'll host your site. Maybe these days they offer more, but let's be, for simplicity's sake, they just host your site, right? So technically speaking, they were not really considered cloud providers per se, because the way we see cloud provider right now, the definition of cloud provider right now is that they offer more than that. Right? It's not just the hosting. All cloud provider right now provides you with hosting services, but that's not the only thing they offer. They have way more services that they offer to you. So that's kind of like the difference, right? So a Google Cloud, for example, would be able to offer you basically build your entire IT infrastructure on their platform. Same thing with AWS, same thing with Azure. Whereas if you're using before the cloud, you use like a, I don't know, like a GoDaddy or something like that to host your site. That's the only service that they were providing you, was just the hosting service.
Yeah, I wanted to add to that also the old way of like hosting websites. It was usually the provider will just make like a small virtual machine available, and then stuff, I don't know, 20, 50 websites on the same virtual machine. And that was that. So it was one tiny shared virtual machine in one region, and that was about it. Whereas for the cloud, there's this idea of scale, and also of multiple geographical locations.
Yes.
So yeah, there's this aspect also. And also my final comment regarding the cost structure is basically if the responsibility of the cloud provider increases, it helps you get quicker to your goal of shipping your app, but you have to spend more. Whereas when the responsibility decreases, you spend more in terms, you pay less money to the cloud provider, but then you have to eat up the cost of the service they used to give you. So the cost for your internal cost will be in terms of time to the delivery of your application, or time or money that you spend on your employees to provide the same level of service. That's it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good point.
Any other comments or questions? Okay. Sorry, there you go. All right. Okay, so according to Technology Magazine, these are the kind of like the top 10 cloud providers out there. So you have the OG of all is like AWS, 34%. Azure coming in second with 21, and Google Cloud is at 11. I didn't even know these other companies had a cloud. Like I didn't know Dell actually had cloud technologies. But the market share for these are so small that I did not have. But for sure, Amazon, Microsoft, and Google are like the top heavy hitters in terms of providing you with these. And the reason, again, my AWS is way ahead is because if we really think about it, they were the pioneers in getting into the cloud, right? So that does any of these numbers surprise you at all, or does that is kind of like what you guys have seen and known this before?
Yeah, I'm kind of shocked that Azure has more share than than Google.
Yeah, I know. The thing about Azure again is that if we think about it, right, Microsoft, in terms of the PC, owns pretty much, the world in terms of like the PC market share, right? So it's easy for companies to switch to go through Azure because they're already a Microsoft shop, as opposed to trying to go to Google, for example, right? So if you're already using .NET, you're already using Microsoft SQL Server, you're already using what are all the Microsoft tools, Windows and all that, right? It's easy to go to Azure because it's Microsoft. Whereas to go to Google might be a bit more tricky, right? But the companies these days are becoming multi-cloud. So you'll have a company who would probably be primarily a AWS shop, but they'll probably have Google Cloud too for something else. Or there'll be Azure, and then they'll do AWS. Some companies even that are so big that they have all three. Right? Usually they do that to mitigate risk, because they don't want to have all the infrastructure under one roof. So they'll maybe do a lot of the compute stuff on AWS, and then a lot of the AI stuff they put it on Google Cloud, which is not that bad of a strategy, but it definitely creates a little bit of complexity, because then you have to have two different teams handling two different cloud providers, right? So, any questions? So we now get into Azure, right? So again, as I mentioned, Azure is cloud provided by Microsoft. They offer you everything you can think of in terms of services, and they have data centers all over the world, providing as many services as you can think of. So whereas that we talked about the infrastructure, platform, software as a service, hybrid capability. So meaning that you still have your own data centers, but you also have cloud presence, because one of the reasons why a company might still want to keep their data center is because sometimes for regulatory purposes. So if you take, for example, a bank, depending on the state, depending on the country, a bank may not be able to put their customer information on a cloud. Or they may not be able to put their customer information outside of that country. So if we take, for example, let's take a country like France, for example, right? If, let's say, there was no cloud provider available, no data centers in the European region, and France says that, hey, we don't want our customer information to be stored outside of France. So a bank in France would need to have a data center in France with the customer information there, but they could still use the cloud, that with a region, let's say in North America, but they will probably only use certain services that um, um, basically the law allows, right? It definitely makes things trickier, because then you have on-premise, and then you have the cloud, which you need to manage the flow of information. But that's definitely something that companies do. Yeah, so again, Azure has AI and machine learning. They have developer tools, database services, pretty much anything you need to do your work. They do offer. So once you get into Azure, you have the way the cloud is structured for the Azure perspective is this way. So as a company, once you first create an account, they give you what you call an Azure account. And then that is kind of like the top level entity, right? So that's your company name or whatever. Then the second level is that you have a subscription. So the subscription is basically a way to separate billing, for example, right? And one account can and will have multiple subscriptions, right? So you can have a subscription, for example, for your accounting department, and you can have a subscription for your supply chain, to allow for a better management of billing, but they all report up to one Azure account for the company. Then the next level is a resource group. So A resource group is kind of like a collection or a grouping of resources, right? So again, this helps to kind of separate out resources and organize them in a kind of like a logical way. And at the lowest level is the resource. So that's the actual virtual machine, the database, the storage, and a resource group can have obviously multiple resources underneath. So that's the hierarchy of the provider, the cloud provider, Azure. Different cloud provider have different way of organizing things. But yeah, that's how Azure does theirs. So for Azure, there are two ways to kind of learn. So as I mentioned, like I started learning Azure about a month ago, and you can access it via two ways. You can have the free account, which gives you access to the product for 12 months, and you get a $200 credit for 30 days. And you can also have a student account. It gives you again access for 12 months, but then the $200 credit is for 12 months. Now, there are some free resources from Azure for free all the time, right? I can't remember the number of resources that are free all the time, but I can find it and let you know. But that is what this means: free access to your Azure. Sorry, that's not what this means, but there are some products that are free all the time that you can use. But the credit here that I'm talking about, the $200 credit, depending on your account, is either good for 30 days or 12 months. So this is not gonna fit in one screen, but basically the way this picture was created is that I picked up some of the these are not all the services out there, but these are kind of like example services, right? So we have Azure services right here, and then by category we can kind of see the different services. So when we talk about compute, we're talking about actual computers like machines, right? So the services that Microsoft Azure offer, so we have VMs, we have Kubernetes, Azure Function, app services. In the networking, you have these as well. So DNS, virtual networks. For the security, you have firewall, Active Directory. Storage, you have Blob, file storage. For databases, you have SQL database, Cosmos. And for the machine learning section, you have all these different services. And this is where you can find OpenAI's API integration with Azure. So so these are not all the services out there. This is just a small list of services based on the category that you can look. And sometimes you only need compute and networking, so you might need a virtual machine and a virtual network, perhaps some security behind. Or if you were a big company, you will pretty much use you'll use multiple services on all these different categories. Any comments, questions before I move to the next section? All right. So now we'll go to Azure itself. So to access Azure, you have to portal.azure.com. So this is basically what Azure looks like. Okay. Obviously, when you click here for the first time, if you don't have an account, you will have to create an account, and then that way you're able to have access to it. And if it's your first time, you will there's a free, I don't know if it's here that it shows it or not, but you get a free, here, $200 credit remaining, right? It gives you some money to use. And it's only, depending on your account type, it's only valid 30 days or 12 months. So if you're a student, definitely take advantage of this. All right, going back. This is the interface for Azure. As you can see, it's kind of showing you some of the, I would say, most famous or most used services. So Kubernetes is one, virtual machines, Cosmos DB, SQL database. And here on the left side here, you can again see the services. If you come here and you click on this kind of will give you a page of all the services. As I would see, AI and machine learning, we have 22 services. Analytics, we have 21, 36 for compute, containers, database. For those that are in DevOps, you have the services for DevOps as well, and so on and so forth. So there are tons of services that are provided, right? And that's the reason, again, why Microsoft is second, right? Because they offer a ton of services. Yeah. So one of the services that we will talk about today is called static web apps. So static web app is a service which I would categorize as a platform as a service that basically you can use to deploy applications. So let's say you have your own website and you're like, all right, I want to be able to deploy. And again, this one is the static web app service. There's another one called web app, but the static web app services basically allows you to deploy static websites. So for those who don't know what the static website is, basically, you either have a website that would have a front end and a back end. So the back end is typically your database and your APIs. And you have a static web app, which does not include basically any backend. So they're just like static web pages that are built and deployed, and you're not storing information in the backend. Now, there are a lot of frameworks out there that helps you build static websites, and one of them is called Hugo, which we will be using. Let's go back to here. So again, this is Microsoft Azure. These are all the services. Now, the demo now, before I get into the demo, I'm going to pause here and then ask if there are any questions, and then we'll get into the demo now. Anything anybody wants to add, perhaps, that I missed? Or comments? Well, I have a question. Has any of you ever deployed your own website?
On web hosting, yeah.
Okay. All right. Cool. That's awesome. All right. So.
Yeah, maybe Renal, maybe can you describe how you did it?
Say it again.
Can you describe how you deploy your own website?
On the web hosting, like InMotion hosting and stuff.
Yeah.
Yes. So usually it's like he mentioned, like a static website. Information they really don't change. They're just informational. So you use FTP. You could okay. First, when you create the account, the provider will give you some credentials. So you have to go there. You set up an FTP account, and then sometimes you have to attach the domain name to the web hosting. Let's suppose if I purchase a domain name on GoDaddy and I have my hosting on InMotion hosting, for instance, I will go on GoDaddy and I will point the name servers to the InMotion hosting. Then I have an empty thing. If I tap the domain name, nothing happens. Now I go back on the InMotion hosting. I set up an FTP account, and then I will kind of copy my files to the web hosting. That's it. It's pretty complicated, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we will see the Aziz way, like with Azure. and see
yeah,
how it
it's really neat. Yeah. All right. Okay, so let me talk about Hugo real quick, and then we'll get to. So, for those who don't know what Hugo is, so Hugo is as the name says, the world's fastest framework for building websites. So, I think Ben actually told me about Hugo a while back, if I'm not mistaken. So it's either Hugo or Jenkins, but anyways,
Oh, it's definitely Hugo.
Okay,
I don't
yeah.
like Ruby that much. So.
Okay. Yeah. So it's really neat. You can use it to build your static websites. It's very what is the document? It's very quick. So I'll show you a quick start here. So these are the commands to create a website. In my document, there's we also have that. So once the prerequisites, of course, you have to install Hugo, and then you have to have Git. And you kind of go through these commands and quickly build your own static website in a few clicks. And obviously, if you want to use a theme, which are here, what are themes? You can use all these different themes to kind of like pretty up your website. Using the theme might be a little more tricky. You'll have to kind of learn how each of these themes work. But you can definitely have something up and running really quickly. All right. So,
and how do you add content?
How do you add content? Oh, it depends. Each theme will have their own, right? So I'll show you if you right here they have a command. So the quick start. So right here, add content. So you will have a post folder, which I'm going to show you soon. And then typically the content would be in a markdown format. And I'll show you an example soon enough, but that's how we basically added content into particular theme. But each theme sometimes may have different ways of adding content, but this is kind of like one of the basic ways.
Maybe can you describe markdowns like shortly?
Yeah. So markdown, the way I can think about markdown is basically it's a file format that similar to what a JSON or one of the other file formats. Anyways, similar to what a JSON format is, right? But you basically follow a particular syntax, and the computer, based on that syntax, the computer basically knows how to interpret that syntax and show up really nicely in the web on your page. So, for example, there's no markdown here, but let's go. Where's my? I'm gonna show my URL. So when you look at markdown, you can see the code, right?
Yeah, maybe can you zoom a little bit?
Oh, how do you zoom?
I think Command plus.
Is it better?
Yeah, that's good.
So this is markdown technically. So the hashtag the double hashtag. So basically, if you that is one way of it doesn't have a lot of it doesn't have a lot of markdown code here, but that's technically a markdown file. Another one here, yeah, you can see these are so basically this would be interpreted in one way, this would be interpreted in one way. So yeah, that's kind of like the format of a markdown file. Now, and then what it would look like, this. I hope the server is up. So you can see how this is bold, So that is how, when you create the markdown file, this is how it would look like when the page is rendered. So you can see the bullet points here. So yeah, in our code, if you look at it, there were dashes, right? And then it became bullet points. So that's what markdowns are.
So there's no need for a special editor, right? This is just plain text.
Yeah. This is plain text, yeah. That empty, yeah. All right. Now.
Je peux poser une question?
Mm-hmm.
Côté francophone. Je voudrais savoir, si on veut avoir Azure, la photo précédente que tu as montrée, il faut installer, non, pas ça, il faut installer le virtual machine d'abord, avec le domaine et tout, pour avoir accès même à l'interface de Azure.
No. So she asked whether, je vais to the point, she asked whether, in order to have access to the portal, whether we need to install anything. And then, so let me answer in French and then I'll answer in English. Non, pour avoir accès au portail, c'est juste le lien, en fait. Tu vois?
Donc, on n'a pas besoin de ce que tu avais dit sur l'histogramme que tu avais donné, qu'il faut virtual machine et tout ça, les hosts et tout ça, avant d'installer même les networks. Il faut une machine spécifique En fait, il y a les machines qu'on peut installer dans l'ordinateur, mais c'est pour installer même l'interface de Azure. Bon, s'il y a quelqu'un qui fait réseau là, il doit comprendre.
L'interface de Azure, tu as accès à ça en fait via directement. Et c'est dans l'interface en fait que là-bas maintenant tu crées les ressources. C'est-à-dire tu peux créer ta machine.
Et puis, tu peux rentrer et puis mettre des commandes et puis installer des... C'est ça, tu montrais les commandes là.
Voilà. Donc, par exemple, tu vois que je suis sur l'interface Azure, non? D'ici maintenant, je peux créer une machine virtuelle. On va le faire tout de suite.
Ouais, d'accord.
Let's pick this one. So she asked whether, in order to access Azure, whether we need if we need to install anything. And no, in order to access Azure, you just need a web browser to access the portal. And then basically, I'm showing her how to create a virtual machine from quickly here. Donc,
si on peut installer la machine directement, c'est bon.
Ouais.
Et maintenant, on peut modifier les commandes dans d'autres paramètres. En fait, tout est donné.
Oui. Donc, par exemple, tu vois que si tu veux créer ta machine virtuelle, tu viens ici, tu choisis Resource Group, et maintenant tu donnes le nom de la machine.
D'accord.
Là où tu veux que la machine soit située, par exemple.
Oui, d'accord.
Europe, France.
Les protocoles, d'accord, c'est bon.
Voilà. Et maintenant, à partir d'ici, tu peux mettre le type de système d'exploitation. Bon, ça, c'est la taille de l'OS.
Tout ça, ça va, c'est bon. Oui, OK.
Maintenant, où est-ce que par exemple, si tu es, dès que tu crées, si tu as ton entreprise, tu dois créer le réseau aussi de ton entreprise, en fait.
Ouais, ouais.
Et dès que tu crées le réseau, là, maintenant, tu peux choisir ce réseau-là. Maintenant,
Mhm.
et après ça, il y a plein de paramètres que tu peux faire.
D'accord, d'accord.
Et
Ok.
après, tu crées la machine.
Ok. Non, je voudrais. En fait, c'était pour savoir si tu dois créer, tu devais créer même toi-même ta machine avant de donner le nom de domaine et tout ça. Mais si c'est déjà bon, c'est déjà donné, c'est bon.
Mhm. Et il faut savoir que la machine, en fait, attendez, je vais te montrer autre chose. Il y a un concept que je n'ai pas trop parlé. C'est là où, en fait, la machine peut se trouver. Et il y a Azure a plusieurs. Quand tu crées la machine, en fait, c'est-à-dire la machine est créée, en fait, il y a un ordinateur ou il y a un serveur, en fait, qui est là
Oui,
où ta machine
oui,
réside.
oui.
Donc, quand vous êtes en France, si vous devez créer une machine, where is it? Where is Europe? Europe. Tu vois? Tu peux maintenant créer la machine et puis tu dis, non, moi, je veux que la machine soit
Oui,
en
oui,
France.
oui, oui.
Et ça, ta
Logique.
machine sera plus proche de toi.
Oui. D'accord.
Yeah. So basically, what I was saying is that when you create a machine, you can pick and you should pick a region that's close to you, right? So I remember I was saying, if let's say you're in France or whether you are in, if you are in North America, for example, if your company is located, let's say in the Midwest, you will probably have to pick a machine that is what is it? What are the regions? Oh, shoot. A region in the US Central region, which is Central US. So what this means is actually there is a data server, a data center in Iowa where your machine would be located. That is actually what this means. So at the end of the day, even though you are using a website or a portal to create the VM, there is actually a physical computer or that is hosting your VM. And if you pick Central US, it will probably be in Iowa. If you pick the East, it will be in Virginia. So if your company is in the Midwest, it's best to have it close to here for, especially for speed. Any other questions? Okay. Demo time. So I talked about Hugo. I talked about the service that I wanted to talk about is it's called static web app. So that's a service. Again, the service allows you to host or deploy your static website to it very quickly. So before we do that, we have to create a site. So if you follow the instructions here, I basically follow the same instructions on the Hugo site, where you create a new site. But let me show you. I did this earlier. Save some time. So I have 3 static apps here, and one of them is called My Blog. So you can see in My Blog.
Aziz, can you zoom in a little bit?
Oh, you can see. Better?
Yeah.
Actually, let me do it. It looks bigger on my screen. That's why all right. Donc, let me do it quickly in French too. So, alors, je suis en train de créer je vais créer un site et puis déployer le site en ligne pour qu'on puisse voir. Donc, le site, je le crée avec cet outil qui s'appelle Hugo.
Mhm.
Et de là-bas, maintenant, je peux déployer mon site. Donc, so we can look at here. I had built the site and I created 2 markdown files. I also have this file here, which is the configuration of the site. So I will come back to this later, but keep in mind about this one. So this is the theme that I'm using. And I started using these parameters, but I'm still learning this theme here. So it's I haven't been able to make these parameters work yet, but the site works. So let me redo it in front of you so you can see basically what how easy it is to build a site. So let me go back here. So we'll get out of here. Bear with me. So I call this folder my playground. So I have already Hugo and Git installed. So if I do Hugo version, so Hugo is installed, and then Git is installed as well. So you need to have these 2 installed, and I have instructions on how to do that already in the document. So to create a site, you need to, the first command you do is that you do Hugo new site, and then you can call it Ubuntu, maybe, yeah, just Ubuntu, right? So that's gonna create, what this is gonna do, it's gonna create a folder with a new folder structure called Ubuntu. So you see the folder is created. If you do ls, donc je disais, cette commande en fait crée le site et on a appelé le site Ubuntu. Et voilà, vous voyez le fichier Ubuntu est déjà là. Maintenant, we get into the Ubuntu folder, and then you can see Hugo created all these files for you and folder structure. So these are the skeleton folder structure for you. If we follow the instructions to the T, to the letter, from here, what you need to do, first of all, you need to initialize this folder for Git to start tracking it, to start tracking the changes on your folder. So from here, we do git init. Sorry, one second. Okay. So you can see here, it initialized this folder now. One second, I gotta do something quickly here. I need to change the name of the main branch to something else, and I don't remember the command. Bear with me. All right. Don't. Any question?
You prefer git checkout? Okay, sure.
Yeah, I'm gonna do this. Okay. Donc, je les explique vite en français. Comme je disais, j'ai créé un site avec la commande Hugo New Site Ubuntu. Donc, j'ai créé un nouveau site qui s'appelle Ubuntu. Et ce que ça a fait, ça a créé un fichier Ubuntu et ça a créé en fait un squelette de tous les fichiers, tous les documents dont j'aurais besoin pour ce site. Et maintenant, je suis rentré dans le fichier Ubuntu et puis j'ai fait git init. Git, c'est un... Comment on dit ça? Git, c'est un logiciel qui te permet qui te permet de gérer en fait tous les fichiers que tu as dans ton code en fait.
Genre une bibliothèque.
Qu'est-ce que c'est une bibliothèque? Non, du genre, ça te permet de pouvoir avoir, par exemple, si tu fais un changement sur tes fichiers, ça te permet de traquer en fait tous les changements que tu as fait. Par exemple, tu as fait un changement aujourd'hui et que tu veux revenir en arrière, tu peux le faire. Voilà, c'est Git en fait, c'est un logiciel qui te permet de faire ça.
D'accord.
So now, okay, so we created the site, we created and everything. Now we need to install a theme. So the command to do that, this is the command. All right, so, and this is adding a module with this theme called Hugo theme clean white. So if we come here and look at the, where are you? Theme clean white. It's somewhere here. It's this guy. No, not this guy. Sorry, I thought I had it, but clean. Yeah, it's this. So this is the theme that I installed, and if you go to the link here, it will show you how to basically install. Usually, it would show you how to install a particular theme. You can see, yeah, you see, this is the command that I ran: git submodule add this. All right. Now that the theme is installed, I want to take a look and see what the website looks like. Donc, ce qu'on a fait ici, vite là, c'est que dès qu'on a créé le site, maintenant, n'oubliez, la plateforme Hugo te permet de créer des sites. Maintenant, dépendamment de la manière dont tu veux que le site n'a qu'à, à quoi ça ressemble, genre, est-ce que tu veux ce site, est-ce que tu veux ce site, genre le design, en fait, il y a une commande que tu fais pour pouvoir télécharger ce design-là. Et cette commande, c'est celle-là.
D'accord.
All right. Donc, à partir d'ici, from here, well, now we can quickly take a look and see what the site actually looks like. So let's do Hugo server, which starts a server on localhost and port number 1313. Then we can take a look and see what the website looks like. What? No page found? All right, let's see why. All right, obviously, there's something that I did not do. Let's see, what did I do? Development, render, site. Okay, I think I know. Okay. 1 second. Oh, I know. It's something that I forgot to do. Give me 1 second here. So when you create a site, you need to create a theme. You need to actually there's a you need to change something in the configuration file. So I'm gonna show you what I forgot to do. Okay, so this is my Ubuntu file. So like I said, I had done this before. So we need to add this into our this file here. So while this is Ubuntu, right? This is my folder. These are the files that were created. But there's a file here called Hugo and in there you need to add the theme tag, and then from here you can say, hey, welcome to or something. And then now we can go back. And restart the server. What did I do? Oh, yeah. Okay. Okay. Now the site is up. Okay. So locally, the site is up. My site is local. It's up, right? Donc, j'explique rapidement. Le changement que j'ai dû faire, quand le site a été créé, Ubuntu, le fichier ici, il y a un fichier là où tu dois mettre cette configuration-là pour dire quel thème tu utilises, quel design tu utilises. Parce que sans ça, le site ne sait pas en fait comment est-ce que montrer
les images.
Voilà. Et c'est ça le fichier pour changer. OK. Maintenant, comme le site est créé, mais ça c'est local, c'est-à-dire le site est dans mon ordinateur à moi. À cause, ouais, localhost, ça veut dire que c'est chez moi, l'ordinateur à moi. Maintenant, je veux que le site soit accessible à tout le monde. Maintenant, pour faire ça, je dois faire en sorte pour que le site soit sur ce qu'on appelle un hosting server, un serveur qui, en fait, où les sites Internet s'en vont être logés, en fait. Et on le fait avec Static Web App. Any questions on this? Okay. Now, again, as I said, the site is local. We need to make sure that the site is available for you to see. So one way to do that, we'll stop the server first because we have one other thing to do. So we need to build the site. So there's a command for it called, this is the command to build the site. So Hugo -t Hugo theme clean white. So this builds the site. So you can see what it did. It built the site for you, and then it creates a folder called public, which has the content of your site. And that one, you can basically push that to to GitHub. All right. So now everybody's following us. So we built our site. Everything is local to me. Now we need to be able to use static websites. So to do that, a couple of things we need to do. The first thing, we need to create a repo. So what is GitHub? Why can't I access GitHub? So Sorry about that. So, je vais m'exprimer en French quickly. Pour envoyer, pour déployer le site, on a besoin de quelques outils. Le premier outil dont on a besoin, c'est de pouvoir envoyer tout le code de notre site à cette plateforme qui s'appelle GitHub, qui te permet de loger en fait tous tes codes. Ça, c'est la première des choses qu'on doit faire. Donc, avant de le faire, on doit créer ce qu'on appelle un repository. So we'll create a quick repository here called Ubuntu. Maybe I should say Ubuntu test, just so that it's not the same. Ubuntu test. No, I will say demo. Sorry. So we create the repository. So the repository is created. Now we need to push the code to that repository. Okay. So in order to do that, we'll go back again to here, cd public, and then this is Achilles' wheelhouse. It's the boss of Git. Git add dot to add all the files. Git commit initial commit of the site, and we will do one other thing. Bear with me. It's a long command, so I need to copy it. Oh, sure. Actually, it is right here. Sorry, it's right here. It's this. Yeah, that's the command. Let me make sure. Yeah, and then git push. Provision main. OK. Donc, ce que j'ai fait tout à l'heure, c'est juste envoyer tout le code que j'avais localement. J'ai envoyé tout ce code ici. Maintenant, le code est là. Voilà tout le code. Donc, public, c'est tout le code. Et voilà. Maintenant que so the code is there, now a couple of things we need to do. So again, we use GitHub. That's the first thing. Now we're going to go into how to actually deploy the app. Okay. So in order to deploy the app, we got to come to here. Then you can search for static web app in the search right here, but it's already here. So you click on it. Like you can say I already have it here, but we'll do it together. OK, so donc j'ai envoyé le code déjà à GitHub. Maintenant, je suis sur Azure et je veux utiliser un service qui s'appelle Static Web App qui va déployer en fait notre code pour le permettre d'être accessible comme un site internet en fait. Donc, so I come here, we create. You can see this is the subscription resource group, which I had already created. But if you want to create a new one, you can create a new one. And then here you give the name of the app. Sorry, the name of the static app. So I would say Ubuntu, maybe test. Actually, just let's call it Ubuntu. Free Now, I am in the Midwest, so I pick Central US. And here, so this is again the connection between Azure static web app and GitHub. As you can see, you have, this is where you tell Azure static web app where your code is. So for us, our code is on GitHub, right? And I already have, I'm already signed in because I've done it before, right? So basically, this is where your code is typically located. You can also use, some people also use Azure DevOps to for their code. So my code is in GitHub, and I'm signed in as my account. You can see.
Yeah, can we use FTP?
I don't know. I've not used FTP here, but maybe in others. No, I don't see it. But currently, these are the two options, and then I think others, it doesn't really give me select this one. Yeah, I think with other you could be able to use FTP, but I can't tell you.
Or is it possible to upload the zip file maybe?
I don't know. I think it's possible, but I suppose if you're able to access the well, actually, let me take that back. I'm not 100, because remember, this is a it's a platform as a service, right? It's a PaaS, right? So essentially, they're not necessarily giving you access to the access server of where this is going to be located, because they're making it where they what's the word? They encapsulate a lot of the difficulties of perhaps using uploading a file. Because if that's the case, then you could theoretically just use your basic Nginx server, right? And then just upload your file like that. But the static app is a way to kind of like encapsulate the difficulties of doing all that and making it where your code actually is, they can just kind of like pick it up from there and then deploy it straight up into the virtual machines. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right. So again, I can't stress enough, this is the connection between Azure static web app and then your GitHub repo. Now from here, you pick, this is me. And then now this is where you pick the repository. So from here, where are you? What did I call it? I called it Ubuntu demo. See, it's right here. So this is the repo. So you can see Ubuntu demo. If we go back here, see Ubuntu demo again, because your code, this is where your code is. And then you tell it the main branch. And the reason why, because nowadays companies are not using master branch, so make sure that you change when you create your repo to change the name to main, because I think that can create some issues, because that's what yeah, anyways. And the second connection, see, build details. So enter values to create GitHub action for. Here, this is where the framework that we use to build the site, you can pick. You can see you have Jenkins, VuePress, Gatsby, Hugo. So when you do that, they technically know how to handle Hugo, because they've done all the work behind the scenes. Okay, so again, the connection to GitHub, the connection to Hugo. Donc je répète, donc ici on est en train de configurer en fait la manière dont on va déployer notre site. Donc vous voyez ici, là où on a envoyé notre code, c'était un site qui s'appelle GitHub, et ça c'est mon compte. Et le nom du fichier où mon site se trouve, Ubuntu Demo. Et bon, ça c'est la version, on peut dire. Et n'oublions pas qu'on a utilisé une plateforme pour créer le site qui s'appelle Hugo. Vous voyez, Hugo. Donc, l'outil sait déjà, en fait, comment faire pour comment dire, configurer avec la plateforme Hugo. Here, I think I'm going to change it to public just to be safe. Maintenant, we can review the workflow configuration. For those who have done DevOps, this is basically a code, a YAML file created to deploy the application. So you can see it's using the main branch. It's going to do a build and deploy. It's going to pull my code and then deploy the code. And, you know, I won't bore you with the details, but basically this is auto-generated by Microsoft Azure to deploy the code on GitHub. It will use GitHub Actions. A review and create. Okay, and then we can create. Donc, see, it's creating the. Now, if we run into here, so it created the resource. Now it needs to deploy it. You can actually see the deployment happening. So if you come to actions, you can see it's actually doing the deployment. See it not work. Okay, I think it worked. Ok, donc, ce que je disais, c'est que derrière, ça a créé en fait le code pour pouvoir faire le déploiement. C'est-à-dire, ça va prendre tout le code de GitHub et puis créer une machine virtuelle et envoyer tout le code là-bas en fait. Ça va installer tous les fichiers et puis les logiciels nécessaires pour pouvoir déployer le code. Parce qu'il sait en fait, dépendamment de la configuration qu'on a fait, il sait où se trouve, il sait comment faire tout en fait. Si je vous donne un exemple, vous voyez que ça a téléchargé thème que nous-mêmes on a téléchargé, il sait où trouver le thème. Ça a téléchargé Hugo aussi dans le serveur quelque part ici. Où ça est? Where is Hugo? Where did it? I'm trying to show where it actually downloaded Hugo because it knows that we're using a Hugo site. It's there. I'm sorry, but I can't see it right now because it's a lot of detail, but it's there. Anyways, so the deployment was worked. Now it will give us a link. So now we go to the resource. Donc, vous voyez, le déploiement a marché. Et ça nous a créé un lien pour notre site Internet. Voici le lien ici. So si on clique dessus, on croise les doigts que ça va ouvrir notre site. Voilà, notre site est maintenant accessible partout. Donc, je vous donne le lien. Je suis sûr que tout le monde peut pouvoir accéder au site. Yeah, go ahead, Ben.
Oh, no, continue. Okay.
Yeah. I posted the link there. You should be able to access it. So our site is up, basically. Now, are you guys able to access it?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. So as you can see, this URL name is not really great, right? Ambitious Rock, blah, 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 blah. But that's the URL that's provided to you by Azure. And then from there, you should be able to, you can use a service called DNS to basically change that to the name that you want. But that's another service that they offer. Now, okay, so our site is up. You can see, you saw how quickly, in 2 seconds, we were able to have the site up, right? But you have to kind of know how to put all the things together, right? The connection. Now, the beauty about this is this. Let's make a quick change to our site and see what happens. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to copy some details from my blog, the other one that I did, and then try to put it in this one, in the Ubuntu one. And then we'll make a quick change, and then you can see you can see how quickly it is to deploy changes. So content, post. Where are you, content? The new folder, posts. I'm doing this manually, but typically you have to use like you can do this with the command line. But, so the file has been deleted. Oh. Okay, 1 second. I'll just do copy. Then we'll just do one. Okay, so now on our new site, the Ubuntu one, I created 2 posts. You can take a look and see what it looked like. Which folder am I in? I'm in the public, and then to user. Okay, now you'll be able to see the changes. Okay, now you can see I have my blog post. You can see. Again, now I'm in localhost. This is my local machine. Donc, rapidement, j'ai créé 2 pages, en fait, on peut dire, 2 posts où j'ai ajouté, en fait, du contenu sur mon site, en fait, on peut dire. Donc, j'ai mis mon résumé rapidement. This was created automatically.
Je vais voir.
2
J'ai
pages.
activé. Tu n'as pas partagé, j'ai activé, mais c'est toujours pas affiché. Hein.
Lequel?
Ce que tu viens de rajouter.
Non, ça c'est le changement que j'ai fait, c'est sur ma machine locale d'abord.
D'accord.
Parce que les changements qu'on fait, on fait les changements sur ta machine locale. Et maintenant, quand tu es prêt sur ça, tu envoies maintenant les changements sur Azure, en fait. Ouais. Donc, tu vois, localhost, c'est local, en fait. Maintenant, comme j'aime les changements, on va maintenant envoyer les changements là maintenant sur GitHub. Donc, so we will build the site. Okay, and now we'll push our code into GitHub. So public, and then git add. Donc, les changements que j'ai faits sur ma machine locale, je les ai envoyés maintenant à GitHub. Donc, on va à GitHub et vous voyez, là, 18 minutes, c'était le premier changement. Si je rafraîchis la page, j'ai fait le changement il y a 1 minute de cela. So basically, I pushed my changes here and it should be picked up automatically. Dès que j'ai envoyé le changement seulement, l'outil sait que j'ai fait des changements. Directement, il commence à redéployer mon site, en fait. Sans que je lui demande. C'est automatique. Ouais. Ouais. Et c'est déjà fait. Rapidement déjà. Et si je vais sur le site où tu es,
C'est bon.
ouais. Ouais. Vous voyez que le changement est là. Maintenant, now, if you click on it, I don't think it will work. See, when we clicked on it, we can't see the page. And I will tell you why. See, we can't see the page. D'ici, on peut voir mes changements. Mais dès qu'on clique sur ça, on n'arrive pas à voir, en fait. Ouais. On n'arrive pas à voir. Donc, il y a une autre configuration qu'on doit faire. So, there's another configuration we need to do. So, this is your base URL, your ambitious rock, whatever, right? This is your base URL. We need to actually add that into the configuration. Because you can see the base URL still has the example.org. So, donc, on doit changer ça. We need to change this to this. Obviously, this is what Microsoft gives us, but this would be your website name, right? This would be your www.aziz.com or something like that. But this is what Microsoft gave us, so we put it here as the base URL. Donc ça, c'est le site de notre site internet. On doit en fait configurer ça pour que l'outil sait où se trouve, comment dire, où il se trouve en fait. Parce qu'avant ça, c'était ça. C'était exemple. Qui n'était pas en fait notre site internet. On doit mettre ce qu'on appelle base URL. En fait, c'est la page principale de notre site. Maintenant, dès qu'on fait ça, on peut encore revenir ici. Bear with me, I'm gonna rebuild the site. Okay, rebuild the site. Okay. So we made the changes, on a fait les changements. On repart encore sur GitHub. Vous allez voir que dès que un changement est fait, seulement il est au courant et il recommence encore à déployer notre site et puis les changements qu'il y a derrière. Et ça va finir bientôt.
So quick question for Bruno. Is it an improvement over FTP and Shellhost? You think?
Actually, I was waiting for you to finish, and it's more of a request than a comment, actually, because the simplicity is very is impressive. So I wanted to know if we will do that for like a dynamic, let's say like a web app. If we could do that, that would be very, very helpful.
So again, before I answer the question, oops, no, that's not it. Remember that this is static apps, right? This service is for static apps, right? There are also other things for web apps. I haven't tried that yet. It's static web apps. See, so that one. Sorry, my bad. Not static web app. I want web apps. App services. Sorry, app services.
Okay.
I haven't tried that one yet. I suspect that it's still going to be, because again, my every time my thinking about the cloud, they try to make things as straightforward and streamlined as possible. However, I do also think that they hide a lot of complexity that may or may not be good for you, because if things break, then you don't, because of it being, how do I say that, some of the complexity shielded from you, you may not know how to fix it, So to answer your question, I do think that even app services will make it a bit streamlined for you to deploy apps, but they'll definitely have some. You may not have all the flexibility, perhaps, of if you do it with like maybe FTP or something like that. Yeah, but I haven't tried it.
Wait, if we can do that, that would be helpful. You see, I'm more like a Heroku guy. I just want to be able to build an app and just push it. And because the configuration, what makes people sometimes be hesitant by jumping on the cloud is all the configurations you have to do behind. And it's like sometimes people don't want to focus on that. They just want to be able to build a product and just ship it. So I've been attracted to Heroku because of that, because I don't have to configure anything. So I tried AWS, but I couldn't figure out my way around, like try to figure out how to just push it to the GitHub, and just is going to kind of deploy my app. And what you just did is close to the experience I'm looking for.
Right. Yeah, for static websites, right?
Correct. But I suspect it will be close to that if you do the web app. I'm pretty confident it's going to be close to that. If I can connect the GitHub to like I don't know how you call it. You call it a resource, right?
Yeah, a resource. Yeah.
If I can connect the GitHub to a resource and just push the code there, I think that's 90% of the job already.
Yeah, I do think that even Google also has services where you are able to deploy and configure it where you're able to deploy, and then it will build the app automatically for you. Ben, you've deployed a bunch of websites on Google. Like, have you seen that? I'm sure you've seen that.
Yes. Actually, the Heroku experience can be done on any platform. Just because Heroku itself, I think, is just a layer on top of AWS, right? So
correct.
Yeah, so they basically wrote some automation, and then they put it into a nice website, and then they charge you for something that AWS runs. So to have the same experience, actually for the Ubuntu site, my deployment process is pretty similar to what Aziz showed with the static website option of Azure. The site is not a static site like Hugo. There's a backend, there's access to database and all that, but with a little bit of, if I would say, like automation, I just have to check in my code, and then I don't have to keep, like doing manual steps in between. So I think in the other sessions, we're gonna get into a bit of automation to learn how to do that. That way the workflow will become like checking code, and then it gets deployed. And you can even play around with the branches. You can say like, okay, this branch is for, I don't know, development. And then whenever it's stable or the feature is complete, then you merge it to the main branch, and then this one goes to prod, like things like that. It's it's possible to streamline and not have to use Heroku. So
okay, that's definitely what I'm looking for, because I think even when I'm trying to find tutorials or like explanations online, it's pretty complicated. I think the problem when people are trying to teach cloud, sometimes they start with the most complicated parts. And if someone is not, I don't know, like that can be intimidating, or you'll be like, okay, you know what, that's too complex. Let me try to find something that's simpler. But if you show the way Aziz just did, right? You show how quickly you can deploy something, and later on you can be like, hey, by the way, you can tweak this, you can tweak that. I think it's more, you make it more like accessible to like a beginner. You see? I wasn't able to find a tutorial on that.
I mean, I would say like at times people don't have any interest in like making it easy, because that's how they charge the big money.
Yeah.
You know, like making it seem like you have to go through them in order to get stuff done. Like, yeah, but it's not complicated. So,
Okay, I would appreciate if we could kind of take a web app with and just deploy it, whether it's on Azure or Google Cloud, AWS, as long as we can see almost like the same experience where we connect the repository and just push it. For me, that's going to be a request. I know it's a little bit selfish, but you know,
it's all good. Yeah. So, any other questions? Yeah, that's. I mean, if we go, sorry, that's the old one. If we go back to the ambitious rock, you can see when I click on it, now it shows my blog. You know, so now you can see it. So that is really all I wanted to share today. Wanted to kind of like showcase how quickly you can get your site up and running. Now, in order to change the name of your website, if you want like your own one, you'll need to use a different service. I believe the DNS, domain name service, to do that. Where are you? Anyways, it's Microsoft has. Oh, okay, Azure DNS. Microsoft provides that as well. That service as well. So, any questions before we wrap up? Any comments? Was this helpful?
yeah, it was very helpful. Actually, let me share a link. I'll put it in the chat. Maybe we gotta give some hard work for Aziz, like for the next. Like, can you open the link in the?
Yeah, let me open it. Let me open it if I can get to my thing. Oh, here. Okay. Build pack.
Yeah, so that's one thing that Heroku first came up with, build pack. So the way that they are able to just deploy, like apps without doing much, is that they have some scripts that will detect what type of project has to be deployed. So they can figure out whether it's a Java app or a PHP app and so on and so on. And then they, using that assumption, they have a way to package the application and deploy it. So as you can see on this page, the same build pack feature of Heroku is also available on Azure. So maybe next time Aziz will show us how to do build pack.
Sure. Hey, I'm learning Azure. It's fun. So
yeah, you can see how it's pulling directly from GitHub using the build pack, and then it figures out how to deploy it.
Yeah.
So it's a very hands-off experience. So.
Yeah. All right, I'll take a look at this.
Well, that's what I'm looking for.
All right.
So Aziz,
I got you, man. Let me. I have 2 weeks. Yeah. All right. Now this is even like going through the deploying the Hugo site was really helpful, because it makes it where you want to build your own site, it's very quickly, right? And then especially if you want to build like a quick website, your resume, Markdown, you can just have one page and you're done. You have something up and running, I would say, in a couple of hours, right? So
Yep.
so
Yeah, actually, it's a good way to have like a good visibility, like having your personal website.
yeah.
Even though mine is always down, because every time I'm thinking of new ways of building it, and then shut it down and come back.
Yeah.
Je voulais faire la même chose. Là, dans 2 semaines, vous présenter presque la même chose, mais c'était avec AWS. J'ai vu qu'Aziz a fait ça avec Azure, donc c'est plus rapide. C'est beaucoup, beaucoup plus rapide.
Ouais, c'est statique, là. Static
Yes.
at website, yeah.
Bon.
Achille, you
yes.
can see, my request, so you can do also AWS the build back.
Yes, I can. Okay.
Because
I can
I'll
put it in AWS. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So I will do it like in 2 weeks. I will just share how I build I just build what we say, a resume on AWS, like a static website. Yeah. Static web page, not website, web page.
Okay.
So maybe you can show us how to do build pack on AWS also.
Yes, okay. That's what I was.
Yeah. No problem.
Yeah, because I really want to see like how it's done on Azure, AWS, if possible, Google Cloud, and it doesn't hurt if someone can do the Google Cloud too. That would be helpful.
I know Ben is gonna be like, I say you should do Google Cloud too.
Yeah, I found the link for AWS build pack. You can share that too.
Okay. Me personally, I learn better when I see someone doing like that.
Oh, really?
So, yes. That's why I really enjoy what you guys are doing. Thanks again for that. Sometimes I feel like it's actually very selfish. I'm like, okay,
Hey, it's selfish for us too. We're also learning, So it's also for kind of like our own benefit too. We're learning this too. Yeah.
Yeah. Plus, like the field is changing all the time. Like I was telling Aziz this week, I was still learning some things in Google Cloud, and then it turns out that I might have to work with Azure all of a sudden. So yeah. So it's helpful for me to like see Aziz do stuff, and then I learn. So, yeah.
Before we adjourn, one last thing we need to do. Every time, don't forget to, when you create these resources, to delete them, because right now the servers are running, right? So it's costing you money.
Okay.
Yeah. So always, this is for demo, right? So that's why I need to delete it. But if you need it, you keep it, right? But because it's a demo, I'm gonna delete my resource group, which has my 2 services, because I did this yesterday. This is my other demo. So I did this. These are my 2 resources underneath my resource group. So if I delete, what is the delete button? If I delete the resource group, it will delete all the resources underneath. If I can find the delete button. Yeah, this is how I'm manage. Anybody seeing the delete button? Oh, maybe right here. No. Really? There's no delete button for the resource group. That is. Oh, right here. Delete resource group. Sorry. Yeah. So I will delete, and then it will delete my 2 resources. See, delete, and then enter the resource group. So a lot of the time, before you delete anything in the cloud, they want you to do something manual before you can delete it, especially when you're on the page like this. So they want you to enter a resource group name to confirm deletion. So that forces you to actually copy the name, put it here, and then you can delete, because once it's deleted, it's done, right? So they don't want to make it as easy to delete things. And that's going to delete all the stuff. All right, so that's all I wanted to share today. I hope you were able to learn something today. My new motto is learn something, teach someone. That's my new motto. Learn something, teach someone. So there you go.
Yeah, thanks again, guys.
Yeah.
Hey guys, also join Discord also.
Discord, yeah. We have some videos there that we post also. So. All right. So, any other questions? If not, then we shall see you guys in a couple of weeks.
Yeah. So, what is the plan for next week? Finally.
Well, we need to figure out. I need to talk to Kofi because Kofi wanted to present. If Kofi is not presenting, then it could be you. If you're not able to,
so just let me know if Kofi is not able. I will do that.
Okay. Yeah,
I already write it. So I already write it down. So it's okay for.
Okay. Yeah, Kofi is out of town, so I'll send him a message just to confirm, and if it's good, then I'll let you know.
Yeah, guys. Also, if you need help, if you need help preparing, like because it's
yes, I will reach out to you for sure. Like tomorrow after tomorrow.
Yeah, I can help you prep.
Yep.
So.
And Somda, selfishly also Somda, we're also gonna ask you to present something then at some point.
Yeah.
I'm not as good as you guys.
No,
maybe in 6 months.
No. Listen, we started this like a year ago, just hard off, man. We it's not like we're experts in presenting. No, we're among friends, so there's no how do I say it? There's no judgment. You know what I mean? So the more you do it, the more you actually learn how to present. So.
Yeah, and it's a very good
okay,
way.
We'll see.
It's a very good way to learn because sometimes, like even for things that I think I know, until I have to like show somebody, like that's when I realize that I actually
you don't know.
So several times I was up until 6 in the morning, trying to finish a presentation because I'm like, oh, I had it all wrong. It's actually this way. Like, So it's a good way to learn. So
it is. Yeah, it is. Plus, Ben will sometimes throw me curveballs while I'm presenting, so it makes me like make sure that I actually know what I'm talking about.
I see. Okay, well, I'll think about the topic.
Yeah,
I'm not like a tech. I'm more. Okay, we'll see.
Yeah, just share whatever you know, man. That's all. We all kind of like can learn from any one another. So.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, done. Thank you very much. Have a good weekend. We'll talk
Thanks,
to you
everyone.
Thank you for the presentation.
Merci. Bon après-midi.
Merci. Bye.
Aziz, we
Oui.
play tomorrow, hein?
Je sais, on va regarder le match.
On va aller danser coup de marteau.
En tout cas, on va aller danser coup de marteau.
I'm practicing now.
Je disais à Ben qu'on a mal fait, on aurait dû t'habiller à l'heure, là, t'as su, on a mal fait même.
On a manqué.
Moi, je n'ai pas envie d'avoir crise cardiaque, donc je ne regarde pas. Je regarde quand c'est fini, là. C'est là que j'apprends. Donc, ça donne ton émotion forte.
Je pensais que le match, c'était aujourd'hui même. Je pensais que c'était aujourd'hui. Il allait dire si c'était aujourd'hui, c'est sûr qu'on n'allait pas pouvoir faire ça à l'heure, là. Mais c'est demain, je pense. C'est demain, ouais.
Ouais, c'est demain, dimanche. Ouais.
Ok, ça marche.
Ça va chauffer. Oh.
Et
je vais là pas un petit morceau.
Non, mais de toute façon, non, ça se présente là. C'est votre chance de gagner. You gotta go all out.
Yeah.
You gotta go all out. You can't sit back.
I know.
Yeah.
C'est ça, Benjamin, là. Faut pas qu'on dise, on pensait pas qu'on allait arriver à ce stade. Bon, on est arrivé trop loin déjà. Je veux pas ça. J'allais m'entraîner à danser coup de marteau. Je suis en train de regarder les YouTube. Même il faut demander à Benjamin, il y a un petit Libanais, un bébé, il a 2 ans. Il danse jusqu'à il tape ses mains comme ça.
Non, mais la vidéo, là, c'est grave, quoi. Sur Instagram.
Danser, c'est comme moi, il faut que j'aille m'entraîner, parce que c'est honteux.
Non, en tout cas, si c'est blanc, là, on a vu blanc dans ses coups de marteau, ça c'est clair. Il y en a beaucoup. Il y en a beaucoup. Yeah. Ah, mais c'est du bon. En tout cas, croise le doigt pour demain.
Ok.
Yeah.
Moi, mais je ne savais pas qui a éliminé le Maroc.
C'est pas Cap. C'est Guinée, non? Mais c'est Mali. Mais je me rappelle même plus.
Il n'y a même pas vu dedans.
Je pense que ça va être le Mali, je pense.
Parce que les gens ont fait des vidéos quand le Maroc a gagné, là. Parce que
C'est le Congo. C'est
le Congo, peut-être.
Parce que quand le Maroc avait gagné et puis la Côte d'Ivoire est passée, là. Puis on avait mal joué au début, là. Donc, c'est à cause du Maroc qu'on est passé, parce que le Maroc était déjà qualifié, mais ils ont quand même gagné leur match.
Si.
Donc, les Ivoiriens ont fait des danses arabes, là, en tapant la même chose, mais avec des chansons marocaines. Moi, ils étaient contents. Ça me faisait trop rire.